Good evening, everybody. We'll call the Wednesday, September 13th, 2017 Planning and Zoning Commission meeting to order. Clock up on the wall there is a little bit slow. The time is now 6:01. Second item on our agenda is hearing of residents. Staff has told me nobody has signed up, but I see a number of people out in the audience. If anybody has anything to say, feel free to come up and make your comments.
I don't have any comments other than my brother Jim is here from Pennsylvania visiting. He's a full-fledged writer for military history. So he was down here for a conference. While he was here, he decided to stop by and say hello anyway. But unfortunately, he's leaving in the morning. But anyway, if you get a chance, stop and say hello. He's an extremely smart PhD.
All right, next on our agenda is the consent agenda. Item A, minutes for the August 9th, 2017 regular meeting. Item B, PC 2017-036, consider and act upon a request for approval of a final plat for Unit 1 of the Halleys Cove subdivision, an approximately 10-acre tract of land generally located east of FM 1518, approximately 1,375 feet south of Trainer Hill Road, Bexar County, Texas. Item C, PC 2017-037, consider and act upon a request for approval of a final plat for Unit 2 of the Halleys Cove subdivision, a approximate 9-acre tract of land generally located east of FM 1518, approximately 1,375 feet south of Trainer Hill Road, Bexar County, Texas. Item D, PC 2017-035, consider and act upon a request for approval of a final plat for Lot 1 of the Casa Verde Farm subdivision, an approximately 10-acre tract of land located at 7731 FM 482, City of Schertz, Comal County. That is consent agenda. Is there any items that we need to consider separately, gentlemen? All right, I'll take a motion for approval of the consent agenda.
Mr. Chairman, make a motion we approve the consent agenda as presented.
Second.
Okay, I have a first by Mr. Greenwald, second by Mr. Glombeck. Any other comments? Call for a vote.
Aye.
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 Aye. All right, motion carries. Number 4, public hearing. We have several public hearings this evening. Number 1 is PC 2017-034. Hold a public hearing, consider and act upon a request for approval of a replat of Verde Enterprise Business Park, Unit 12A, an approximately 3-acre tract of land generally located approximately 700 feet east of the intersection of Schertz Parkway and IH-35 frontage road, City of Schertz, Guadalupe County, Texas.
Good evening, Commissioners. The project before you is Verde Enterprise Business Park. It is a request for a replat of Unit 12A. The applicant is proposing to replat Unit 12A of the Verde Enterprise Business Park subdivision to create 2 commercial lots. On this exhibit here, it's outlined in green, and it's immediately off of I-35 frontage road here. Proposed Lot 7 will be 1.95 acres, and proposed Lot 8 will be just less than 1 acre. On this exhibit here, it's a little hard to see on the main cover page, but on the second sheet, here's Lot 7 and here's Lot 8, and the match line shows the remainder of the 2 lots that take access off of I-35. The property is zoned Planned Development District, and the PDD designates this property for commercial use. The site is currently undeveloped and is located about 600 feet east of the intersection of Schertz Parkway and IH-35. The final plat for Units 12A and 12B of the Verde Enterprise Business Park subdivision was approved by the Planning and Zoning Commission on August 24th, 2016, and recorded in March of 2017. The replat before you includes only Unit 12A and does not include Unit 12B, which was comprised of lots 4 and 5. Access to the proposed lots will be off IH-35 frontage road and via a 25-foot access easement that connects to an access easement between lots 1 and 3 of Units 10A of the Verde Enterprise Business Park subdivision. On this exhibit right here, you'll see that the 25-foot access easement takes access off IH-35 here, and it continues to further back on both lots. And this is the continuation here. It turns this way, and this is the connection point to the existing access easements between lots 1 and 3. The applicant will be responsible for complying with our tree preservation and mitigation requirements. A tree affidavit and tree survey were submitted indicating that there are protected and heritage trees on the site, but that none will be removed or damaged as part of this application. A tree mitigation and preservation plan will be required as part of the future site plan applications that will be required for development of each of the lots. The lots will be serviced by the city for water and sewer, CPS, CenterPoint Energy, AT&T, and Spectrum for utility services. And public improvements for this project will need to be installed and accepted prior to recording of the final plat. Engineering has reviewed and approved the construction plans for public improvements, and drainage improvements have been completed and accepted. Water will be available via an existing 12-inch water line that runs along IH-35. Sewer will be serviced by an existing 8-inch sewer line that will be extended along the subdivision. No right-of-way dedications or roadway improvements are required. TxDOT provided a no objection confirmation for the proposed location of the easements, the access easement off IH-35. Staff has reviewed the replat application and has no objections, and we recommend approval. Thank you.
Is the applicant here? Do they wish to make any kind of presentation?
Yes, we have a representative for the applicant here.
Okay, this is a public hearing, so we'll open the public hearing at 6:09. Anybody has any comments on this, please make your way to the microphone. If you would, please state your name and address for the record, sir.
Good evening, Commissioners. John Sullivan, 513 Triple Crown. The only concern I have is that our UDC does not require sidewalks on 35 frontage, and we have, I believe, 2 hotels going in on either side and restaurants up the road at 3009. So I don't know if anything can be done about this, but in the future, we probably should look at our UDC and why we don't have sidewalks on the 35 frontage, especially in this area here.
All right, does anyone else have any comments? All right, we close the public hearing at 6:10. Commissioners?
I have to apologize for being a little behind here, but having to stick these maps together. So both lot 7 and 8, they both front 35, and then, correct?
Yes, sir.
And then the access road is kind of a shared thing between them, correct? Okay, thank you.
Yes.
Yeah, I don't know why engineers just can't find a better way for challenged people like me. Well, I used to be the fire marshal, and I would literally take a pair of scissors and cut these things apart and paste them together. So thank you, Jan. I don't have anything else, Mr. Chairman.
Is there any reason why?
So our UDC, there's a specific section that talks about the sidewalk requirements. I can't remember the number off the top of my head, but it indicates that sidewalks are to be constructed along any development, but there are 2 exceptions, and the 2 exceptions are along IH-35 and IH-10. It's currently written that way in our UDC.
All right, Commissioners, anybody else have anything? All right, we'll look for a motion.
And Mr. Chairman, I'll make a motion that we approve PC 2017-034.
Okay, a motion to approve by Mr. Outlaw. Do I have a second?
Second.
All right, second by Mr. Glombeck. Any other comments or questions, gentlemen? All right, I'll call for a vote.
Aye.
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 Aye. Motion passes 5-0. All right, next item on the agenda, PC 2017-010. Hold a public hearing, consider and act upon a request for approval of a replat of the Blackburn Elbell subdivisions, lots 1, 2, 4, 5, and 6, Block 3. This site is an approximate 5 acres located on the northwest corner of the intersection of FM 3009 and Elbell Road, City of Schertz, Guadalupe County, Texas. January?
So the Blackburn Elbell subdivision, on this exhibit here, you'll see it's off the corner of FM 3009 and Elbell Road, located right here. So it's on the northwest corner. And the current subdivision includes a total of 6 lots. And of the 6 lots, 1 is already developed with a dental orthodontist office right here. So the current replat application is for the remainder 5 lots that are currently undeveloped. So that's these 2 immediately off of Elbell, immediately behind those 2 lots are these 2 additional lots, and 1 lot, lot 4, behind the dental office. So the replat includes all 5 parcels. The proposal is to combine those to combine two of the lots off of El Bell, and then the two behind those to create two separate lots, and then slightly modify the lot line for Lot 4 here. So in essence, the proposal is to create 3 commercial lots. The property is zoned Neighborhood Services, NS, and as I had mentioned, the subject property for the replat is undeveloped, with the exception of a driveway off of El Bell Road and a driveway here with a shared access easement off of FM 3009. So the original Blackburn El Bell subdivision was approved in 2007. A replat was approved once before in 2010, which then created the 6 buildable lots that I had just given a brief overview on. 5 of the 6 lots are undeveloped. Access to the property is provided with the 2 access easements with the driveways that I had pointed out. One is off of El Bell Road and the other is off of FM 3009. The project is subject to compliance with our tree preservation and mitigation requirements. Both property owners that are proposing the replat have indicated and submitted tree affidavits that indicate no existing or there are no existing protected or heritage trees on the site. The site will be serviced by Schertz for water and sewer, GVEC, AT&T, and Spectrum. All public improvements for this subdivision are required to be installed prior to recording of the final plat. Engineering has reviewed and approved the public improvement construction plans, and there's an existing 12-inch water line along El Bell Road, plus an additional 12-inch water line along FM 3009. The site would be able to tie into either of those, depending on which lot is being proposed for development. And for sewer, there is an existing 8-inch sewer line along El Bell Road that will be extended for the project. There will be a private water easement that runs from FM 3009 to the proposed Lot 9, which is behind the dental office here. And sleeves will be installed so that future water line connections could be made when Lot 9 is developed. Sidewalks already exist along FM 3009 and along El Bell Road, and no right-of-way or roadway improvements are required for the project. The replat is consistent with all applicable requirements. Staff has reviewed it, has no objections, and recommends approval.
Okay, is the applicant here this evening? Do they wish to make a presentation or any comments?
Yes, we have a representative here.
Okay. Seeing as this is a public hearing, we'll open the public hearing at 6:18. Anybody wishing to make any comments, please come on up. All right, seeing nobody coming up for comments, we'll go ahead and close the public hearing at 6:19. All right, commissioners.
Now, Mr. Chairman, I've got a question about the ingress egress, because at the present time we have a paved driveway that extends from El Bell to the orthodontist office. And I see that as part of the replat that will be abandoned and moved out to the western edge of the property. But my concern is that we currently today have that driveway for emergency access or whatever we want to use it for. And so the question is about timing as to when they'll tear up what's there and when we'll get the new driveway that goes from El Bell all the way to the back.
So based on my understanding, and as we worked with the project engineer, the driveway location where it currently is will line up with the proposed modification to the access easement. So as you can see here, I don't have the exact distance, but on the plat, the easement along El Bell Road is about 118 feet in length. And the engineer has indicated that that incorporates the location of the current driveway location. So if you look at the replat here, you can see a majority of it is proposed to be relocated to the westerly portion of lots 7 and 8, but as you approach Elbel here, it is widened to include the location of the current driveway location.
So I understand that the actual driveway, the entrance, the curb cut will stay where it's at.
Yes.
My concern is, are we going to lose that paved access off of Elbel until such time as they develop the property and put the other and put the other paved driveway in there? That's my question. And I don't know if the representative, whether he has an answer for us or not. Yeah, you understand what I'm asking?
I understand
Okay.
what you're asking, yes, and I'm not sure about the timing. Right now, we have a site plan application for proposed Lot 8, which is the interior lot here. We have not yet received an application for proposed Lot 7, which is this portion immediately off Elbel. So in terms of the timing of the construction of the new driveway and how it will coincide with the existing driveway, I'm not sure about that.
Channery, maybe we can get the representative to come up and explain.
Yeah. If you would, sir, provide your name and address for the record.
Name is Ben Searway. Work for the owner of Vaquero Ventures with the developer. The address is Fort Worth, Texas. So with regards to timing, the bottom piece, we're gonna eventually connect lot 9, 7 to the site. As far as a 100% timeline, I can work with my engineers to provide you with concrete detail. We're not going to leave this site on an island. As a real estate developer, it is our interest to get everything connected and have as many cars come to our site as possible. So if there is a concern about having an emergency access or leaving this dental orthodontist facility on an island by itself, that's not our intention. We intend to get as many cars to our site as possible.
Okay.
with the
Well,
permits.
it's interesting because if we develop the center lot first, then what we end up with is the only entrance to both properties is off of 3009, and you end up with a dead-end driveway. So then we're looking for turnarounds, and so. But okay, you answered my question. Thank you.
Are you satisfied with the answer? All right, thank you.
It's currently being used as a driveway for the school district. Your children are using it to shortcut to 3009.
All right, any other comments? All right, the chair will entertain a motion.
Chair, I recommend we approve PC 2017-010 Black Bum Elbel subdivision replat of lots 1, 2, 4, 5, 6 on Block 3.
Okay, motion by Commissioner Glombeck. Do I have a second?
I second.
A second by Mr. Outlaw. Any comments or questions? Seeing none, call for a vote.
Aye.
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 Aye. Okay, next item on the agenda, item C, ZC 2017-003. Hold a public hearing, consider and make a recommendation on an amendment of Part 3, Schertz Code of Ordinances, Unified Development Code, UDC, Article 1, General Provisions.
Good evening, Mr. Chair, Commissioners. This is a long time coming, and so I'm sure you guys are excited to see the UDC amendments on the agenda. So just to go over what we're looking at, Emily and I are going to tag team on the next two items. We both worked on them. Article 1 has been in the works for 3 years now. We actually started working on it, brought it to council, the P&Z Commission Council. We got a recommendation of approval, and then we had a change in our legal counsel, and so we started the process again. And then in between times, we have worked on it a little and stopped, and worked on a little and stopped. But ultimately, we finally have finished the draft, and there haven't been much changes since that it was seen before. I think Mr. Outlaw is the only one that actually didn't see it at the time, but he could have seen it because he was on staff at the time. But each of you, I believe, have all looked at this before, and pretty much everything is the same in Article 1. But just to quickly go over it, we set out to make changes to the Unified Development Code to kind of take out a lot of the fluff language that was often confusing for folks. And so we wanted to clarify and then take things out that really didn't need to be in the document, so that when anybody picked it up and started looking at it, it would be an easier read for them. And so to start off with, Article 1 is our general provisions, and so we kind of just went through, and I'll go through where we made the kind of major changes, and then I think we provided y'all both a copy of the current and what we are proposing to change. So under jurisdiction, we just updated the language for clarity, and then we actually provided a legend of sort in there so that anybody who lives in the ETJ and is wondering what applies to them, they would easily be able to go to those sections and find it. Ooh. Then also, we had a very large section on the comprehensive land plan, which was basically a copy and paste from the comprehensive land plan to the UDC, and we determined that it would probably be better to just leave it all in the comprehensive land plan, so that when somebody in the future made changes, we wouldn't have to make changes to both. So we clarified to make a reference to the comp plan, and then we just took out all of the language that was just matched what was in the comp plan. Then we also made some addition to vested rights. I think all of you are fairly familiar, but I'm assuming you'll ask questions along the way. Our vested rights section in the current UDC is very small, and it didn't allow for basically projects to expire. And so we have added definitions for what a project and permit is, and also talked a little bit in here about what actually vested rights is, and most people understand it better by just calling it grandfathering. I think most people kind of understand that. And so the goal in updating the vested rights was for us to actually put procedures in there for folks to claim vested rights, and then also procedures for appeals to decisions on vested rights, and as well as an expiration date, so that we don't have this project that somebody started a really long time ago, and then our regulations change, and they are able to vest to those older regulations. So we're able to put a time frame based on local government code on each project, which will allow us to, move forward if that time period expires. But it also gives the developer the ability to still develop under the rules that were in place when they started their project. Also, we actually made some small changes to the rough proportionality. However, I think you guys are all aware that we're going through the roadway impact fee, so that section will be updated in the future when those roadway impact fees are actually approved through council. We deleted a few sections that truly really weren't didn't have a whole lot of, for instance, everything that's in the Unified Development Code is our minimum standards. So ultimately, the requirements to explain what minimum standards were some of this was just kind of fluff language. We additionally added 2 sections that described our development manual, which is it's a packet that we have that has all of our applications and some of our processes and procedures, a workflow kind of thing, so that when we referenced it in the Unified Development Code, we actually could explain what the actual document was, as well as the Public Works Specification Manual. And so that kind of wraps it up for Article 1. It was a fairly small article. But, questions, concerns?
I guess first thing is first, let's get the public hearing taken care of. We'll open the public hearing at 6:29. Does anyone wish to make any comments regarding the presentation on Article 1? All right, seeing nobody approaching the podium, we'll close the public hearing at 6:30. And commissioners? Just for my part from our meeting this morning, that the Article 1 changes that we did here are looking at doing is that we really simplified it. It's much like what we did when we went through the charter review process 2 years ago. I think it's a good thing.
Oh, Mr. Chairman, I'll make a motion that we, is this, are we approving this or recommending to council?
You're recommending.
So I'll make a motion that we recommend approval to the city council of these changes to Article 1, general provisions of the UDC, ZC 2017-003.
Second.
Okay, motion by Mr. Outlaw, second by Mr. Glombeck. Any further comments or questions? All right, we'll call for a vote.
Aye.
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 Aye. All right, motion passes. Next item, item ZC 2017-004. Hold a public hearing, consider and make a recommendation on an amendment of Part 3, Schertz Code of Ordinances, Unified Development Code, UDC, Article 3, Boards, Commissions, and Committees and Associated Updates, and UDC Articles 4, 8, 9, 11, and 14. Lisa.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So again, just to reiterate, these changes started happening 3 years ago. We brought these as well to the commission, who recommended approval to council, and then at that point we changed legal counsel and kind of went through the whole thing again. One of the things during that time,
you keep blaming these delays on legal counsel.
well, I mean, it really wasn't y'all's fault, but
Well, if the shoe fits.
it helped with the delay. So one of the big things that we focused on that needed to be changed in this was, and this is something that happened in between time, and I think this is kind of where the discussion came up when we were at council was, and I actually think Mr. Dalla brought it up as well, is the need for that Board of Appeals potentially. And so one of the things Emily worked really hard on, so I'm going to let Emily kind of take over from here, was creating the criteria and working with legal counsel to create the criteria to have a building and standards commission, and then us to kind of reallocate some of those things that were maybe put under the Board of Adjustment that weren't really zoning related, that probably need to actually go to the more appropriate board. And so by creating this, they're able to make decisions on certain things when it comes to the actual building standards, as well as some of the things for code enforcement under demolition, and then just other types of appeals that maybe should go to them, and maybe we've switched some things around to take them from Board of Adjustment and put them back into P&Z's realm of decision making. So I'll let Emily, you ready?
Okay, so like Lisa said, for Article 1, some of these changes were done in 2014. We're just kind of restating them, telling you why we did them again. So there's some general changes in Article 3 to do some cleanup. One of the things was deleting the implied authority, and then for every commission and board in their current UDC section, it talks about the authority granted. So we decided to move that all to the general provisions. That way it's only stated once and kind of shorten all the rest of the sections. So like I said, for P&Z, we removed the authority granted. We did an update to structure of the commission and operational procedures to provide some more clarity, just to kind of simplify it and say that y'all go with y'all's bylaws. Same thing, we did some updating to the duties and approval authority to incorporate some of the new duties that y'all will have if the Building and Standards Commission gets approved and adopted. Some of those items that were currently going to the Board of Adjustment are going to be changed to come to all of you, which we'll talk about a little later. Very similar with Board of Adjustment, removing that authority granted, updating the structure of the BOA, and then updating their duties and approval authority to specifically specify that they hear cases related to zoning and zoning-related decisions. Some changes to the administrative authority, more clarity updates, adding an interpretation appeal or other application to be considered by the Building and Standards Commission. Some of those changes that we just had to make with wanting to create this new board. Pretty similar with the other boards, commissions, and committees, removing that authority granted. If you look in the current UDC, TSAC is actually listed out as Traffic Safety Advisory Commission, so we're making that change it to Transportation, just some cleanup. So then we have this creation of the Building and Standards Commission, which comes out of Local Government Code, Chapter 54, and like Lisa said, they have specific things that they can hear. It's really about building code, fire code, building safety, those kind of things. So some of the things that they would hear cases on for the preservation of public safety relating to the materials or methods used to construct a building of improvement, fire safety, dangerously damaged buildings or improvements, things like that. They would also have the authority to do this list of items per local government code, including order the repair of a building that's in violation of an ordinance, declare a building substandard, determine the amount and duration of the civil penalty if one of those buildings is considered substandard and appropriate measures aren't taken to remedy. They would also be able to hear appeals to decisions from the fire chief, fire marshal, or a building official, which is all provided in the International Building Code and Fire Code, that there's this board of appeals that we didn't have that gives them the right to, if one of these officials makes a determination, an outlet to feel out and get a different interpretation.
Just to change that from heal to hear,
Where?
right?
Go back, I think on the presentation. Yeah,
Yeah.
We'll get it fixed. Thanks, Mr. Glombeck, keeping me on my toes. They also have the authority to make a determination as to whether an alternative construction material or construction method equally meets. So just to be clear, this isn't if someone wants to say, well, we don't want to do the masonry requirements, we want to do this instead. It's not to hear those sort of appeals. It's more of, we think this material is the same quality as this material, those kind of things. So like it says at the bottom, facade materials are exempt from this section, so they would not be hearing these items. They also have the authority to reverse a decision of the fire chief, fire marshal, or building official, but only by concurring vote of at least 4 commission members. Some more responsibilities that they would have, hearing the proposed amendments to the fire code and building codes, requesting a change to either of those codes adopted by the city, also just to act as kind of that advisor role to the fire chief and building official. So like I've been saying, since we've started this creation of this new board, we really looked at all of the items that were currently listed as being heard by Board of Adjustment. And the first thing we said was, is this zoning related or not? And if it's not zoning related, where's the more appropriate board? So during that time, we created this list that I gave all of you that has the code section, a quick description, the code language, and then our proposed new board. So you can see it up here. Like I said, most of these changes they're being heard currently, or they would be heard currently by the Board of Adjustment, but they're not zoning related. So we needed to find a more appropriate outlet for them. So with that, that's it.
I'll just quickly follow up. Mr. Dalla asked a few questions this morning, and maybe some of you might have some of the similar ones. He asked a little bit about home occupation and why that would change. And we talked about, home occupation is typically by the use there, and so it seemed appropriate that the Planning and Zoning Commission would take a look at it, just because the rules are a little bit different. You can have a home occupation business. You can run your office out of your home as long as it meets a certain criteria. And were there a couple of other things that you wanted us to expand on that we talked about, or were you comfortable with?
I'm comfortable right now.
Okay.
Just let the commissioners have their own questions
Okay.
on how we're going to address this. All right, I guess first thing again, public hearing. So we'll open the public hearing at 6:40. Does anyone in the audience have any comments regarding the presentation? All right, seeing no one coming forward to speak, we'll close the public hearing at 6:41. Commissioners, comments, questions?
A couple of questions. So the new commission, the Building and Standards Commission, assuming that we recommend approval of this amendment and council approves this amendment, does that create the commission, or is there another step involved?
So we have been working with Dan here, our legal counsel, on getting procedures together, as well as having the ordinance that creates the board so that city council can appoint those folks to serve on that board. Our initial I will just tell you, our initial recommendation would be that our Board of Adjustment serve as that board until such time as we're able to, there's a caveat written in, until that we're able to get those folks that are, our electricians and mechanical folks, plumbing folks who are willing to volunteer to serve, that live in the city and that kind of stuff. So, no, there is more that'll come along with it, but it'll come along at our city council meeting.
Okay, so we're kind of, I don't want, the word assuming probably isn't the right word, but we're thinking that the council will follow up and actually create that commission.
We're going to be prepared for that.
Okay. So my follow-up question is I saw the list of the members, and that they, are, the ideal choice would be, is it registered professionals, or anyway, professional people in the different specialties. But I'm assuming they still have to be residents of the city. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay.
No?
I should rephrase that too. Correct, if we can find somebody to volunteer that can do that. There is the caveat that allows council to select.
No,
Yeah.
I understood that,
Okay.
but I wanted to make sure that we weren't going to go out and find business people to
No.
fill that. So they would be citizen volunteers just like us that happen
Exactly.
to have that particular specialty.
Exactly.
So the primary requisite would be a Schertz residency.
Yeah, that is correct. And we can work with Dan on that.
All right, anybody else?
I'll ask one more question. Did anybody do a study to see what this was going to do to our agenda workload?
That's a negative.
Oh, that was rhetorical.
I would see that there would be a few more items that come to us as a result of this, but overall, as a city, we're continuing to grow. We need to continue to evolve. We recently redid our charter, added 2 new council members, changed the length of term, and, updating our UDC and creating the Boards and Standards Commission, I think, is a logical step for where we are in our evolution as a city. So, gentlemen, any further comments? All right, then we'll entertain a motion.
Mr. Chair, I recommend we forward to City Council for approval ZC 2017-04, Article 3 Boards, Commissions, and Committees, UDC Amendment.
Second.
Okay, motion by Mr. Glombeck, second by Mr. Outlaw. Any other comments or questions? All right, we'll call for a vote.
Aye.
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 Aye. The motion passes
Thank you.
5-0. Next item on our agenda is ZC 2017-009. Hold a public hearing, consider and make a recommendation on amendment of Part 3, Schertz Code of Ordinances, Unified Development Code, UDC, Article 4, Section 21.4.15, Public Infrastructure Improvement Construction Plans and Community Facility Agreements. January.
Okay, so this proposed amendment is not for the entire Article 4. It is specifically for Section 21.4.15, which covers public infrastructure improvements, construction plans, and currently the term is community facility agreements. Just to give a little background, earlier this year, so we've been working on this, well, I believe it started in 2014, was tabled for a little bit, and then we picked it up again the beginning of this year. So staff has identified the need to update this section for a number of reasons. Eliminating some of the fluff was one of the items, and also evaluating it in comparison to engineering department's process for review of construction plans as it relates to the timing of processing of plats, and also reviewing it in relation to improvement agreements that the city enters into with developers. So in our research and evaluation process, what we have done is we held several internal meetings between planning staff, public works, and engineering staff, and have gone through several renditions and draft documents to look at what needs to be revised. And part of that process also looked at surrounding jurisdictions, UDC code sections, what their requirements are related to public infrastructure improvements and improvement agreements. So just to give you a quick overview, we did not provide track changes because of the extensive amount of comments. It was not user-friendly, so what we have done is attached to your staff report the draft version plus the current version due to the amount of changes and relocating certain sections, subsections, and just the extensive amount of revisions. It was very difficult to see all the changes using track changes. So I'm just going to give you a quick overview. The term community facilities agreements is proposed to be modified to improvement agreements. Reason being, currently, the UDC has the term community facilities agreements and also subdivision improvement agreements. And in reviewing it and comparing it to agreements that the city has executed for development projects, the term improvement agreements seemed more appropriate because for parkland improvements, the agreement that's entered into is parkland improvement agreements. And then for subdivision development proposals, the term is typically subdivision improvement agreements. And so there was some confusion with the term community facilities agreements versus subdivision improvement agreements. And also comparing it to other jurisdictions, the more consistent and more frequently used term was improvement agreements. So that was one general proposal to be revised. And also, if you look at the current UDC subsection 4.15.b and 4.15.c, it covers the application requirements and processing of application and decision. As we reviewed that, we felt that a lot of the criteria that's currently in the UDC is very specific, and it doesn't necessarily need to be in there. A good example is currently the UDC talks about submittal requirements of how many sets of plans need to be submitted, the memo format that needs to accompany that. Rather than taking that approach, we discussed this with engineering department and felt that it would be more appropriate to just refer to the department's permitting requirements. That way, should those permitting requirements change, it doesn't necessitate a UDC amendment for changing the requirement of submitting 2 sets of plans to 3 sets of plans, as an example. Our current UDC language does not include anything related to expiration and extension of approval of construction plans. And so we're proposing to add those subsections into the new UDC subsection. And the way it's written is to coincide with the expiration and extension provisions for final plats. So the timing of the expiration of the construction plans, if they are approved, then coincide with the expiration of final plats, which is 2 years, unless an extension of 6 months is granted. An additional proposed revision is for the warranty bond period. We're proposing to increase this from 1 year to 2 years, and the provision also modified, the language also is modified so that the start of the warranty period is one of 2 dates. It's either the date of acceptance that starts at the date of when the public improvements are accepted, or when the plat is recorded, whichever one is later. And additionally, some minor modifications to improvement agreements and securities. We reviewed those sections and just made some minor modifications to clean up the language. The current UDC section under security for completion of improvements, there's a requirement for, there's a statement about building permits. We are proposing to eliminate that since building permits are not issued until the plat is recorded anyways, so we felt that that language wasn't necessary. And then also the way it's currently written, it doesn't account for possible deferral of improvements based on improvement agreements that are entered into between the city and the developer. And the inspection and acceptance of public improvements, that's still in there. We just move that subsection to a more appropriate place so that as you read through the entire section, it makes more sense. And we just deleted the disclaimer language because we didn't feel that that was necessary. Some associated revisions to other sections of the UDC to be consistent with this proposed amendment is currently our definitions does not define what public infrastructure is, and so we're proposing a definition for that. And subsection 21.12.10.F2A, we're proposing to change maintenance bond to warranty bond for consistency with the proposed amendment. And subsection 21.9.10.F, that's the section regarding parkland improvements or agreements that are required. We're proposing to change the title from Parkland Development Agreements to Parkland Improvement Agreement, and the entire paragraph is proposed to be modified to be consistent with the requirements of improvement agreements for this subsection. So that concludes my presentation. We also have a representative here from Engineering Department in case you have any more specific questions about the process that I'm not able to answer.
Thank you for that. All right, first thing is the public hearing, so we're open to public hearing at 6:53. Anyone wishing to make any comments, questions regarding this presentation? All right. And seeing no one approaching the podium, we'll close the public hearing at 6:54. Commissioners. I just have a brief question about the warranty bond, extending that from 1 year to 2 years. Are we seeing that in other communities that we benchmark ourselves against as well, or is that something that's just we're going to do?
So from the cities that we've looked at, it varies between 1 year and 2 years. Larry, would you mind coming up here to answer some questions? We suspected that might be a question. I believe, based on our experience, the 2 years seemed more appropriate, and I'll let Larry answer to that.
So the communities that we've looked at the requirements and kind of talked to, there's a few that have gone to the 2 year. There's been a little feedback, of course, from the development community, but as a whole, it doesn't seem like nobody's gone back to the 1 year. So we feel like it's appropriate, and it just help kind of keep invested in that community, and that way we don't have those issues later on at a year and 1 month and a year and 2 months, especially as we see some developments sit there. That's why we had some other changes, but they sit there for a few months and no home building happens, so no traffic on the streets. Things just get ran over by different folks driving through there for whatever reason, and so damage happens when there's nobody there. And so obviously the warranty doesn't cover damage, but just the deterioration that happens, it definitely helps for that 2 year warranty, and it keeps that process moving, because the developers and the contractors know that they're liable for that 2 year period. So.
But it's majority of the places are going to a 2 year and just sticking with the 2 year.
Yeah, we haven't seen anybody that's gone back from the 2 year just because of the pushback. Not everybody's gone, and so our neighborhood communities still have 1 year, but we have some of our benchmark cities have gone to the 2 year and have stuck with it. So.
Is it creating a problem for some of the developers?
Yeah, I guess we haven't worked through it yet. So, it certainly is obviously going to impact their agreements with their contractors, but we haven't heard too much negative impact of that. It's affected development in any way.
I'm assuming that any warranty bond that's extended by a year, 2 years, is probably going to be a little bit more expensive than one that's 1 year. I think that's what kind of referring to. Is there a hidden cost, in there? We don't want to make it difficult for our developers. It's a nominal fee and makes, yeah. So you haven't heard any feedback on that?
Certainly, there's a cost implication to the bond itself, and as well as just the structured agreements and the cost of the infrastructure, because that most developers, of course, their contract is structured for that, or whoever did the work to come back and fix it during that warranty time, and so there will be cost implications that we don't know what that is.
Okay.
But there certainly will be some.
Is the San Antonio 2 years?
San Antonio is, I don't have my information with me. I'm not sure if San Antonio's jumped to 2 years.
Any other cities?
New Braunfels has.
Okay.
I believe is Round Rock. I believe three of our benchmark cities have gone to 2 years. So hopefully Chenery's helping me out with that.
Okay. I don't know if I heard you say something earlier about fair wear and tear. That isn't included, or the warranty bond is not for fair wear and tear. Is that correct?
So warranty issues are for warranty work or defects. And so where we get some of those is, a common example would be streets. And so especially subdivisions that they get built and for whatever reason, homes don't get built for a while, there's no traffic. And so there's pavement failures associated with, just with no traffic and maybe over the utility trenches. And so you'll see that as you start seeing construction traffic on there. And that's not necessarily due to damage, it's because the trench wasn't compacted well.
Okay.
That's certainly a warranty issue, but if we don't, especially we've seen some subdivisions that set there a while before the homes come in, we don't see that until after the warranty period. So then, our taxpayers on the hook for fixing those things that weren't necessarily built correctly.
Obvious things like cracks and potholes and depressions over trenches, I see, but when you folks go do your final inspection or whatever before you accept a street or a road from a developer, what's the process? I'm trying to figure out how to say this. What's the process for determining that it's a warranty issue and not, that the developer needs to fix it and not the city? Is there any discussion, or do you guys just tell them, I guess?
Well, when you walk throughs, both for the initial acceptance and for the warranty period, typically the developer, definitely the contractor, is there. We offer it up to both of them, and we literally walk it, and so we'll certainly have discussions. We usually invite their engineer, or if they're not present, if there's any concerns that come up, we'll consult them.
Kind of good. Where my thoughts are is that let's say we're a year and a half down the road, and so obviously you're not getting a brand new road. You're getting a 18-month-old road. And do you guys take that into consideration, or do you expect them 18 months later to give you a brand new road?
So there's, I guess it would depend upon the nature of, there's certainly failures, pavement, curb, or, that could be attributed to just damage from somebody. If it's obvious it's damage, then we certainly look for the responsible party. But if it's a failure of a utility trench, or if there's just some major crack in the road because it's a subgrade failure, it's certainly a conversation, and we look at it from our point of view. And then if there's some contention, then we will pull the engineer of record in and also discuss it with them.
So I found some cities that have the 2 years. New Braunfels does require the 2-year warranty period. And then City of Plano also has 2 years. Some of them also have a higher percentage. Ours is proposed at 20%. Some of them are increased to 25%.
What do you mean by 20 or 25%?
Warranty bond.
Okay.
So the warranty bond is our current UDC, and we're proposing it to be 20% of the estimated
Value.
Got it.
Georgetown was 1-year maintenance bond for 25%.
I guess my concern on the warranty bond issue is, it is a cost on the developer, and years past, the years that I've been up here, we've not been afraid to impose additional costs and requirements and up in the standard, so to speak, for what we're requiring from the developers. And as a citizen and taxpayer, I see that it's an effort to protect us and the investment that's being made in the community. But I also have a concern that at what point are we requiring too much of the developers, and at what point are we going to be having the loss of potential projects and economic development as a result of going too far with what we're requiring developers to build in the city. And the heavy guns just came out to bat.
That's right. Well, I just sit there in the corner and play solitaire for a while, but we'll see. No, I think that's a valid point. I think part of what we want to do is not impose regulation, whether it imposes a cost, time delay, or hurdles unnecessarily. I think that makes perfect sense. And so what prompted this is, frankly, a problem that we're having. And you've heard that before, and we've had the commissioners ask that before with regard to, we have roads built, and they seem to have problems quicker than we would like. And so a couple things to touch on. The assumption is we're not going to have all the infrastructure for a subdivision fail. We've not seen that ever. What we've seen are these things popping up. And so the percentage is set to say 20%, 15%, 25% is enough to cover the kinds of problems we see. And frankly, if we get something that comes in and 50% of the value of the subdivision's failed, it's a bigger issue that we've got to deal with and wouldn't solve through here. And so when we talked about it, there are a couple ways that we can go at it and deal with the problem. As Larry kind of mentioned, one is to be very clear, a warranty bond covers defects associated with construction. Now, part of the problems we're seeing in subdivisions are, frankly, the home builders and the contractors damaging the infrastructure. It's not covered under a warranty bond because the contractor that built it's going, look, I built it perfectly fine. This guy clearly was running some kind of loader or truck or whatever over the thing, and he busted it up as any curb anywhere would. And so one of the solutions is to have all the inspectors, building and the construction inspectors, work with the home builders, work with the contractors, and make sure they're not busting stuff up. That's a thing we can do that's not an additional cost associated with it. The other thing that we can do is we could say, well, the problem is really with our standard, and we need to beef up our standards of construction. We've done that over the years. We don't think that's required, and that's got a cost associated as well. What we've tried to do with this is target the issue at hand, which is, as we've been out there, what we frankly have seen is issues appearing that appear to be workmanship and or defects popping up longer than the year period, that as those subdivisions sit and people aren't driving at it, they start to appear. And so if that's why we're imposing the cost, it's not an issue of we've got a whole bunch within the first 12 months because then our current warranty bond works fine. It's that we start seeing things, some very quickly, some 6 months in, some we start seeing 11, 12 months in, and that then becomes an issue because we're scrambling to put the developer on notice and not release the warranty bond and et cetera. And then again, sometimes we'll see those continues as they get through repair. And so I agree with you. This is intended to target what we see as the problem, which are warranty issues, defects popping up toward the end of that period and even into the next year that we feel like it's appropriate to deal with. I think certainly if the commission had a concern that maybe that's too long, we can look at an 18-month period instead of a 2-year period. Again, I think we'll certainly hear from developers and contractors, but as we looked at potential solutions, beefing up the standard and extending the warranty bond, our feeling was that the warranty bond is more palatable because while it's an increase, it's not the same as we say, let's beef up our standard for construction. and also it doesn't target the problem as much. But I can appreciate the comment. So yeah, if we were not having a problem, we would not be proposing it, because frankly, staff has to monitor those warranty bonds, and it means they have to go out and check that subdivision more. So this in fact puts more work on our construction inspectors who are going out 6 months in, 9 months in, 12 months in, 15 months in, 18 months in, 21 months in, 23 months in, and checking it for what it's worth.
Larry, it just occurred to me that my question about the longevity of and your inspections, I was looking at it the wrong way. The warranty bond period is after you've accepted the street, correct?
That's correct. There's an initial acceptance, I guess, at the time that all the infrastructure is complete.
Okay.
Which now we accept with that letter.
Okay.
With the change, it'll be at the time of plat recordation.
So you would expect to get a brand new street, because then the warranty kicks in. So I was
that
looking
time
at
we
it the
will.
wrong way, and I apologize for that.
All right, gentlemen, any other comments? Questions? All right. I'll entertain a motion.
Mr. Chairman, I'll make a motion that we forward ZC 2017-009 to City Council with a recommendation for approval to the amendment of Section 21.4.15 of the UDC.
I second.
Okay, we have a motion by Mr. Outlaw, a second by Mr. Glombeck. Any other comments or questions? All right, we'll call for a vote.
Aye.
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 Aye. Motion passes 5-0. Okay, next item on the agenda, item ZC 2017-010. Hold a public hearing, consider and make a recommendation on an amendment of Part 3, Schertz Code of Ordinances, Unified Development Code, UDC, Article 4, Section 21.4.3, Notice Requirements.
Okay, I think your commission is familiar with this. We've had several workshops on it, so at some point, and I can't remember when, commission had requested staff to research, look into posting signs related to public hearings for zone change requests. It might have started sometime after last year when we had the multifamily apartment proposals, and just wanting to assure that the public was well informed. And so in addition to the written notice that gets mailed out, your commission had asked us to look into posting signs on the site as well. So staff looked at, as part of our research, we looked at other surrounding jurisdictions' UDC requirements, what their policy is related to posting of signs, and then we also held several workshops before your commission to talk about what our options could be. We also communicated with the city's sign shop to gather information related to estimated costs if we were to prepare the signs in-house, and also to determine feasibility. And so what we have before you is proposed amendments to UDC section 21.4.3, which talks about noticing requirements, and then also 21.5.4 C2, which is the section that talks about the process for zone change applications. So if you look at the handout that was attached to the staff report, what we had done was in red text, we are showing in red text the proposed new language that would be introduced to section 21.4.3 and also the other section for zoning, the process for zone change requests. So The third item under 21.4.3 that is proposed is a posted notice requirement. And we built in there a suggested time frame that coincides with the written notice deadlines of no less than 11 days prior to assure that we provide adequate notice before 10 days prior to the public hearing. And we also built in there some language to ensure that the posting remained through the duration of both the Planning Commission hearing or hearings and City Council public hearings. And rather than putting specific language about the sign, the frequency of signs and where they should be posted into the UDC, we refer to a development manual, which Planning Department has the development manual that includes a number of documents that includes checklists, submittal requirements, and whatnot. And so we would add into that a policy related to posted notice requirements. And we provided that handout to you right before the hearing. So that's the current draft policy that we would incorporate into the development manual. And the requirement is that the applicant is responsible for ensuring that the signs remain posted through the duration of the public hearings. To be consistent with the posted notice requirement, we are proposing that under section 21.5.4, a posted notice requirement is added in addition to the written notice requirement. And that second bullet, please scratch that. That was something that was added as related to a previous draft that we had considered, but we are not including that in the UDC amendment. And I do have one additional revision to present to you. Under 21.4.3.c, the posted notice section, we are requesting to change this one portion that I highlighted here in yellow. The draft that was sent out to your commission said signs shall be posted on the subject property and along public right-of-way in a format approved by the city manager or his/her designee. And in evaluating that, we're proposing to have it be revised to say and/or along public right-of-way. In addition to the policy handout that we had provided, we prepared a kind of a mock-up of a potential version of the sign that could be posted, and that's 18 by 24. And it includes kind of the basic information of what's being proposed for the zone change, the location for the meetings, date and time, and contact information for anyone who has any questions to contact planning staff.
Okay, this will be a public hearing, so we'll open the public hearing at 7:18. Anyone wishes to make any comments regarding the presentation, then please make your way to the podium. All right, seeing no one, let's close the public hearing at 7:19. And commissioners.
Great job. I like it.
I like the signs. My question is if one is removed or vandalized or stolen, what we're proposing would give the applicant one business day after notification to replace that sign. So my question is, can the city, how fast can the city, if I need a replacement sign, how fast can the city give me one?
So we plan on having a number of these signs ready in advance. So they would be formatted in that way, and then the information could be handwritten in. So I think it could be provided by the city with a fairly quick turnaround.
Well, thank you for all your hard work on this. You know, I'm the one that asked for this last year as we went through that public hearing process, and the rationale behind it is that when we have a big rezoning case, that the rezoning of a particular piece of property sometimes extends far beyond the 200 feet notification rule, and that's why I asked for it. And I'm glad we're getting here to this point. So, any other comments or questions?
Just want everybody to understand that that sign there does not alleviate or change any of the requirements. Somebody can rewrite something on there, including nasty language, so let's be smart. It doesn't change what the actual requirements are.
Any other comments, questions? All right, we'll entertain a motion.
Mr. Chair, I recommend we forward to City Council with our approval, ZC 2017-010, Article 4, Section 21.4.3, Notice Requirements, UDC Amendment as provided.
Second.
Okay, a motion by Mr. Glomack, second by Mr. Greenwald. Any other comments or questions? All right, hearing none, call for a vote.
Aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. All right, motion passes 5-0. All right, next item on our agenda, workshop discussion. Item 5A, discussion on Planning and Zoning Commission recommendation for the CCAB appointment. Gentlemen, I asked for this to be on the agenda, as if you recall, a couple months ago, I resigned from the CCAB Commission. Just a brief background on it. Back in 2014, late in the fall, the mayor and council established a committee of committees in anticipation of a future bond election. Consisted of a representative from each board or commission in the city, of which I was the one from Planning and Zoning. We also included a member from the school board, or the school district, and also from the Chamber of Commerce. In about mid-2015, the Committee of Committees disbanded, and we became the Bond Committee with the bond ballot initiatives that were recommended to Council, and Council did place on the ballot. And then subsequently, after the election, Council felt it was a good way to continue moving forward with the city, and decided to create the Combined Community Advisory Board, which was basically the Committee of Committees reinstituted with the omission of the school board and the Chamber of Commerce representation, so we only have boards and commissions represented on the CCAB. CCAB does meet on a monthly basis. It is the third Wednesday. Typically, the meetings are from 3 to 5 p.m., and so we're looking for somebody that is willing to volunteer and step forward and to continue to serve as a representative for planning and zoning on this commission. I do feel that it is something that we do need to have somebody representing there. It's some pretty in-depth and detailed discussions about policy and things the city's doing. Some of the recent things that the CCAB was looking at was the results of the citizen survey and satisfaction studies and feedback that was provided by the citizens, and how to react and implement that. And that's about all I have on that. And I'm just wondering if there's anybody here that is interested in volunteering, or do we need to nominate and draft somebody?
We're gonna have to look at getting more bodies on here before we start looking at volunteering people.
And my problem, Mr. Chairman, I also sit on the Transportation Safety Advisory Committee, which And so that's 3 nights a month. And it turns out the third Wednesday is really my only week off right now.
All right, and we have 2 commissioners absent. Mr. Breaux is not here this evening. Commissioner Ray is not here this evening. Commissioner Glombeck has announced his resignation. Next meeting will be his last meeting on planning and zoning. And Mr. Greenwald also serves on several other boards and commissions. So if we don't have a volunteer at this particular go-around, I think we'll just have to punt until we have somebody to replace Mr. Glombeck, and that we have a full body here, and we'll take up this discussion again when we have better representation. Okay, next item on the agenda, requests and announcements. Request by commissioners to place items on a future planning and zoning agenda. Right. Mr. Greenwald did ask earlier about discussion about sidewalks along Interstate 10 and I-35. I think that's something that we could look at sooner rather than later, and I would appreciate staff's assistance on that. Next, item B, announcements by commissioners, city and community events attended and to be attended, continuing education events attended and to be attended. Anybody have anything?
Mr. Chairman, I attended the city council meeting last night, and at that meeting, Mr. James provided council with an update on his efforts working with Randolph and the citizens, the residents of Southern Schertz on that land use issue. I found that to be very informative and would suggest that the other commissioners, when you can find some time, maybe take a look at the online posted video for that briefing.
And actually, this morning I asked staff to come and present that information to us at the next possible meeting to update us on what's going on with that. Announcements by city staff.
Okay, so this first site plan is actually for the final plat that y'all approved tonight for Casa Verde Farms, located on 482. And they're proposing a 9.987 acre wholesale nursery. So it does have a current home here. They're planning on turning that into their office space. They're looking at doing a pole barn, quite a few hoop houses, greenhouses, kind of what you would expect to see at a wholesale nursery.
We also received a site plan for proposed Lot 9 of the Enterprise Industrial Park subdivision. Just to help orient you, this is Lookout Road. So the small exhibit to the far left-hand side, this is Lookout Road. And we currently have a replat application from the developer for the existing current Lot 7, which is this sort of an L shape here towards the back, and the replat application is proposing to divide that existing Lot 7 into 2 lots, one of which is outlined in the bolder black boundary line here, which is proposed Lot 9, which is this site plan application. We're currently processing the replat, and the site plan application came in shortly after, and the proposal is for a building that is approximately 187,000 square feet. It's predominantly warehouse with a small composition as office. They have 3 existing buildings already. I believe we've received some finish out applications for building 2 and Lot 5, which is right just immediately south of the proposed Lot 7. We approved the site plan, and they have either already constructed or are very close to completing construction of that building. Thank you.
All right, does anybody have anything else? All right, a motion to adjourn? All right, Mr. Glombeck, motion, meeting adjourned, 7:29.